So,
And we're live. Welcome into Shaping Reality for June 2026. I hope you're all having a wonderful month. It's been kind of peaceful this month. I like it. And I'm here with Penny Kelly. Penny, how are you tonight?
recovering. Yeah, it's been a rough week.
Okay. Topics got you kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah. I mean, today was a good day, but only because I was working in the greenhouse, planting and moving stuff, transplanting. So, yeah,
Oh, that always feels good.
it does. It's like, okay, let's get grounded here.
Yeah,
So,
it's very nurturing and soothing. So
yeah,
here's the deal tonight. I'm taking over
yeah.
because I have questions.
Go for it. Okay.
And they're keeping me up at night. So I want to ask, I thought what we do tonight, Penny, if it works for you,
Mhm.
is I have a couple of current event questions or,
Oh,
right now questions. And then I thought towards the end, because, the last month was about the pole shift, and I did watch
yeah.
the community Zoom on My Coco Life. If you guys aren't a member of My Coco Life, you might want to check it out. There's just a lot of good information over there. And there's a Zoom stream that Penny did a few nights ago. And it's up there on the pole shift. And it was really interesting. And then I went and watched the movie that she recommended and stuff. So it's information intense over there. If that, is something that's of interest to you folks that are watching.
Right.
So I thought we would wrap up with just, I thought we'd share our personal thoughts about, the pole shift and the impact that it might have. I know the thoughts that I have were surprising to me, and I would imagine people that are watching may have been a little surprised or, about what came up for them. So if that works for you.
Yeah. I was surprised what came up for me. So you go ahead, share.
Okay. Well, let's do the pole shift later because I want to dive into current events first. And it's something that's really, gosh, it's on my mind, and probably people watching it's on their mind as well. And it's about what's happening, with the whole Trump administration and the Iran issue, and global markets and this and that. And I'll tell you what my dilemma is, and I'm hoping you can help me understand better what's going on.
Okay.
I have watched hours of videos talking about the memorandum of understanding and the deal with Iran, both from channels very pro the current administration and from channels that think the current administration is a train wreck. I watched both. And both sides, although they have very different opinions about who came out the winner.
Right. That's true.
Both will say that the global order has completely changed, that everything is shifted. I'm like, okay, I hear that. Tell me why. Tell me how. Tell me what specifically happened that changed. What was it then and what is it now? I can't get that answer. And I've watched everybody from, Rich Does Politics and the Promethean people, and Simon Dixon, who thinks, Trump is a tool, to Glenn Greenwald, to everybody. It's like, okay, everything shifted. What is shifted? Can you help with that at all?
I have, and I kind of have an answer. This is preliminary, but I've had the same kind of thing. Okay, tell me, what are we doing? So I listened to a whole bunch, pro and con, just like you. And what I have discerned or distilled from that is, first of all, that they are saying, oh, we won. Others are saying, well, we lost. I don't think that that's an appropriate way to assess what's happening right now, because what I see, when I ended up backing away to just look at, okay, and this was after listening to McGregor, Colonel Douglas McGregor, we've lost, and Scott Ritter, this is a mess, and blah, 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 and da, da, da. The thing that I saw was that they're looking at the whole thing with the expectation that winning, quote unquote winning, means crushing the other person. And remember how people complained when Putin went into Ukraine and they said, he's not serious. He didn't take out the water. He didn't take out the electricity. He didn't take out the basic infrastructure systems. He's just in there poking around, doing what? He's, making a mistake. He's going to lose his rear. And what I saw there, I'm now seeing in the US and Iran, is that both Putin and Trump are trying to force a win-win situation so that everybody who survives is working together around this new order. And the new order has not been, I think there's a lot of announcements about the new order. There isn't going to be just one that says, okay, this is the new world or the new order of things, the American system. And so what we have going is this attempt to change the dynamics. And because, like something I listened to recently, they quoted Peter Thiel. And the quote was so shocking to me. Peter Thiel had said at some conference or something where he was talking, competition is for losers. And the implication in that statement is that you don't want to have honest competition. You just want to screw everybody and take everything off the table and put it in your own pocket. And there was some talk about how that's happening, and I've seen that in the farmers' world for a long time, since the 1940s. So it's so that whole, you can see the setup. Once you see the setup, so for instance, the government or the world, the country, somebody needs a new dam, or they need a new kind of airplane, or they need something. Okay, so they go to the bank and they say, we need $50 million or $2 billion or whatever to build this thing out. It's a big project. So they go into debt, they build this big thing, hire a bunch of people, all of us come in, we work, some people lose their life in those big projects, and we make this amazing thing, whatever it is, whether it's a new airplane or a new dam or a new locomotive or a new kind of energy source or whatever. So we have this amazing thing that's just been invented, and it's just starting to make money, and the bankers crash the market so that the people who borrowed that money lose. They go bankrupt. And then the bank steps in and says, oh, sorry, this is ours now. They take over and they run it to make money. And the people who did all the work got a paycheck, but that's all they got. And that happens over and over and over.
That sounds like the 2008 housing market.
Oh, that's another example. And they're going to try and pull that again. So what I saw when I pulled back to look was like, okay, they're saying, look, this is what we're willing to tolerate. Both Putin and Trump have been blunt. This is what we're doing. This is what we're not doing. This is what we're going to allow you to do. And this is what we're not going to allow you to do. And then they act on that. They act on that in the name of sovereignty. And so that whole thing, when you realize that the goal, and I think Trump and Xi and Putin are all working together. They've all been being held by the short hairs, by the deep state. And the deep state has controlled everything and everything in between those three countries. So they're all trying to fight that deep state without collapsing their own country and without losing to the other two. So Russia has to maintain her own sovereignty, we have to maintain ours, and China has to maintain theirs. And that they're trying to do that and it's a slow, careful process. So there aren't a lot. I think there's going to be a couple of announcements over the 4th of July. We'll see, or shortly after the 4th of July. And I think those will be about money and about ETs, extraterrestrials or aliens. They're not really extraterrestrial. They're terrestrial other beings.
Or they're down the street right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the biggest change right there in the world order is, look, we're not doing this competitive, kill your enemy, kill your competitor. That's, that is what ruins systems. And I think the Fed met today or a couple of days ago or something like that. And they didn't do anything. They didn't raise or lower any rates. And so the talk that I heard was that Trump's position with interest rate is, look, every time people start spending, you raise interest rates and you slam down the whole thing. You just crush the growth. And what I see Trump trying to do is grow us out. And I've got this from listening to half a dozen other people they're financial people. I'm not a financial people. So, but they are saying, look, he's like, we're not going to fret about this debt. We're going to grow our way out of it. And he's got a plan. And some of that plan is a new financial system. And I think that's coming. I think he's going to leave the Fed alone. Remember me saying I see different kinds of money and different systems. And people are like, well, we could do this or we could do that or we could do such and such. And what those different systems add up to is a lot of choices for us and a lot of options. And one of the things that Trump is doing is putting money into, I'll say, weird places. Okay, weird places in terms of like the Pentagon, for instance. The Pentagon is not a bank, but they have been given a whole bunch of money to lend to people who are working on projects that aren't military projects, but they're related to national sovereignty and our ability to rebuild and restore and renew energy systems, communication systems, travel systems, financial systems, all of that kind of stuff. And so when people don't have to go to the Fed, that's a huge change in the order of things that used to just be standard. And now you can go to an organization. I forget, there's like 4 or 5 organizations that have been given billions, and they are going to give that money to, or lend that money as startup money for somebody who's doing something wonderful related to keeping the United States sovereign and keeping people working, and et cetera, et cetera. So restoring infrastructure, restoring industry. So that's the kind of order change. And because it's not what people are used to looking for, and nobody's outright laying it out, we aren't seeing it quite yet. But I think we will. So did you see the Broadway play, Hamilton? Did you go see that? Oh my God, it was so good. It was, Nellie took me to Hamilton for my birthday. And it was one of those experiences like, okay, we're going to do what for my birthday? That kind of thing. And then when we got there, and it was the story of Hamilton and what he was trying to do. And I watched that and thought, this is how education should be done. This is what education should be. I have heard Alexander Hamilton's name, and that he had a duel with some, dork who shot him, killed him. And it was all over the financial system. And that system has still been limping along, kind of. it was taken over by the Fed, but that's really what Trump is doing. He's setting up that system, which is, look, you don't default, you don't do this, you don't do that. If we have to default, we're going to do it in a legal and in a way that makes sense and that leaves us options. And I think they've been trying to keep the price of gold and silver low so that they can buy up as much as they can get, and then let it go up. Let it go up, probably 10 or 12,000 per ounce. That's a little for gold.
My fear is, which I probably shouldn't have, because talk about creating your own reality.
Okay, that's okay.
The government's going to say, okay, we need all the gold and silver, and this is what we'll pay you. And they force everybody to sell to the government, and then they, triple the price or something.
I don't think they're going to do that. I think they have learned from watching China that is the way to ensure that your people have what they need. And that has been an underlying current that Trump keeps coming back to, taking care of the people. And that it's like, okay, there he is back with we need to take care of the people. So I just, if you've got a little gold and silver, hide it, but don't worry about it. Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. One concern I have, and I almost hate to bring it up because there's enough nonsense in the world, is I can see what you're saying, and every time I watch one of these videos on what's going on, I can understand their position. I can understand why they see it that way. Even though I just watched another video that was exactly opposite opinion, I can understand how they see it that way.
Right.
My personal concern is, my belief is that you can't have a happy ending to an unhappy journey. You can't have an ending with integrity when you walked without integrity the whole time. So it's like, in other words, the what you mix together becomes the finished product. And when I look at who Trump is surrounding him with, in my opinion, just my opinion, the worst people on the planet.
That seems to be the assessment of a lot of people. I
mean, Larry Fink had destroyed lives intentionally to make money.
Yeah.
And he's right in the thick of it. Peter,
why?
Who's that guy that's Penny?
Ever had a Palantir? Larry Ellison?
Him and Howard Lutnick? That guy's a crook.
I know. Why? Why is Trump keeping them close?
Well, I understand you keep your enemies close. You keep close your enemies closer. I get that. And maybe there's a backroom deal because he understands that they're very proficient in the area they work in. Maybe he's set them up against the wall and said, "We're going to use your skills, but you're going to do it right this time. Yeah. You got it? Or things are going to change in your life dramatically." Maybe that, or maybe he's just a crook.
Well, once a crook, always a crook. Remember
that? Why would you build a cabinet peppered with the worst of humanity?
I don't know that I can get across how important it is to do that, but in where I come from, okay, we see who's good and who's not good.
Okay, let me stop you there. Do you see right now in your human form, are you able to read someone's energy system and make what you feel is a fairly accurate assessment about their level of integrity or good intention?
I'm going to say so. There've been some times where I thought, oh, they're wonderful. And then later it's like, oh, they're not. But then there've been a lot of people that I have heard or read that or knew that they were involved in something, and all of a sudden, and I expect them to be still rotten. okay, rotten to the core. Then I hear them talk, or I see them involved in something, and I think, oh, okay, maybe they're not as bad as I thought they were. And then later on, what I see is that that's a necessary connection. It reminds me of how we do things where I come from, which is you work with whoever you have to work with. If you cut off communication, if you shut people out, you empower them. And here, people have the ass backward idea that if they're bad, you don't talk with them. If they're, if they're criminal, you don't work with them. You do work with them, even if they're bad, even if they're criminal, but you draw lines that you tell them, look, here's an opportunity. So let me take Lutnick, for example. What I see is that somebody got a hold of him, number one, and said, look, we know what you're doing. Here's your choice. Either you get hung or or you come and work with us. And he's still trying to walk with one leg on each side of the fence. Okay. So he's not very trustworthy, but he knew a lot of people. And it's like Q said, we've had to make deals with people who were less than desirable because of their connections. And it was either jail or you come and work with us and you do as we say, and we are watching you, and you're not going to get away with this anymore. So there's been quite a few of those who we have continued to just kind of look the other way and work with, etc. And we've let them do some of the things that they normally do because we're watching all their phone calls, and who they talk to, who they email, who they meet with secretly, etc., etc. So all of that is happening, and Hillary Clinton is another really good example of somebody who's really awful, and they have left her in place to see who she tries to communicate with. But I think after, I don't know, I don't even want to give a date. There will come a moment when that kind of putting up with ends. And those people will have to make a choice. And I think what I see is that there's a big expansion of stuff happening in, what's that prison? We were just talking about it.
Guantanamo.
Yeah, Guantanamo. That Trump is now working, he's dealing with Cuba kind of quietly. I think that was why he spent the weekend at Camp David, dealing with some people that are head really high up in the Cuban administration. And I think there's some deals going on around Guantanamo, et cetera. And all of that is really a situation where there's going to come a point where a lot of people are done. We're done with them. And if they have behaved, they don't go to jail. They have to fit in to a good system. They have to serve people. There's how many thousands? 100,000 sealed indictments. That's a lot of people that are going to either go to prison or pay fines or lose everything they've got or get hung or, what do you call that?
Firing squad.
Firing squad, yeah. And I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to watch any of that. There was a point where I really wanted to see punishment happening until I realized that, it's happening. It is happening already. So here we are at this really tender, vulnerable moment right before the 4th of July. And then I see some things happening with Trump. So there's been lots of complaints about Trump is supposed to be 6'3". Why is he only 5'10" or something like that? I don't think the real Trump would be out and about risking anything. This last couple of years, it's just, people have said, oh, the deep state took him out. He's dead. They put somebody else in there. I think that was a deliberate switch because I think the real Trump is stashed away somewhere, and he's the one giving directions and pulling strings and working, etc. I could be wrong on that. I could be way wrong, but that's how it looks. It's so obvious because we who live elsewhere, come from other planets, have seen that technique. The main leader goes into the shadows in order to give orders, and somebody who is just slightly different takes all the blame and all the risk.
Yeah,
so,
I wouldn't want that job. So backing up a little bit, I guess I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into where you come from. And you said that your people have learned that you don't shut anyone out.
That's right. You can't.
And because what you said was it empowers them.
Right.
So when you bring them into the fold and then give them guidelines that they need to follow, is it to help the whole function better, or is it or is it in hopes that they will adjust their position and their frequencies to become better?
No. You expect that they are going to continue to be the way they are, but you're not fooled for 1 minute. And when you're not fooled, you end up, what would be the word, gaming every possible way that they could screw things up or could cheat, or etc. And you watch them like a hawk, and you let them know, well, I don't know if the U.S. government is doing this, but you let them know that we have tools that can just dissolve them as if they never existed.
It just dissolves their frequency set and off.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's that is a very powerful deterrent. We never ever expect that they're going to change, that they're going to change their mind or change their approach, etc. We do expect that at some point they will get tired, or they will. It'll be so difficult to do the kinds of criminal things, the kinds of bad things that they were doing, that they wear down very quickly because the stress is off the charts. And then when that happens, you have an opportunity to put someone else in there who is honorable. Yeah. And it's a long game. We always play a long game. We're not in a hurry for anything. And if somebody gets badly hurt, we have tools to Sorry. Okay. Hang on here. Let me. Yeah. It bothers me that it takes the computer 3 more rings to be shut off than it does the phone. So we play the long game and we're not in a hurry. There's no short-term decision making. There is I think my people and others that we work with are amazing in terms of their insight into situations. And I would be willing to bet my boots that Trump is working with some ETs that know exactly what is happening and who to work with and how to work with them, and what to say. And when you watch him work, and people just they're like, it's kind of a range of, oh, okay, to who the hell do you think you are? But then they change. They understand that the old game is over. And so they begin to say, okay, let's do something different here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So I guess we'll see it unfold. From what I'm hearing on the streets, mostly people off this planet.
Okay.
July is going to be a rock and rolling month. Lots going to happen.
I think so. Yeah.
So
I've seen it, and it's mostly us causing a whole bunch of ruckus. It's like, I'm not sure that's a good thing, but for everybody, but it's mostly in the cities, big cities.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. The next question I have, you incarnated here on Earth after long training and study about this. We'll call it a mission. Your mission here was to teach consciousness.
Right.
You've been here doing the deal for decades now.
I know.
What do you wish that humans were doing with their consciousness that you don't see enough of them doing?
Oh my gosh. I think in a nutshell, I would say what I wish is that people would come to understand that everything is consciousness, and they can use their own consciousness to impact everything that they see. And there's such a victim mindset that there's such a, we've not been encouraged to even think critically, let alone use intuition, practice telepathy. There's some telepathy that is starting to come out. I'm like, come on. But that would be my wish, is understanding that when something happens that really upsets you, or really you don't want, or that you're afraid of, then you use that consciousness that you've got in the absolute most powerful way. And you use a little bit of that, damn it, I don't want that anger, that fear, that whatever. We don't direct any of our emotions. I would want people to begin directing their emotions, managing those emotions, saving up, a few over here to use over here, and getting people to do that. Even myself, I get caught up in something, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute. And so, for instance, I did a live stream last Thursday with a bunch of people, Zoom stream, and talked about the pole shift. And then afterwards, I could feel everybody's shock, and I just cried. It was like, oh my God, I didn't want to have to tell them that. I didn't want to have to say that, but I don't see people preparing. And I want these people to make it, because they have done some work to really expand consciousness in a beautiful way. And so what happened was that 2 nights in a row, I go to bed, I go to sleep. And in the first night, after the first night, I wake up and I have this, something weird happened. I couldn't remember what. I just was aware that something strange happened. Go to bed the next night, and I have this dream. And in the dream, there are 4 tall whites in my house. And I'm outside working in the yard or something. And I look through the window and I see, OMG, solid white people, like probably almost 8 feet tall. And there they are. And they're looking right through the window at me. And then one of them came out to talk with me. And I got so shook up, I woke up and ruined it. So that was, for me, it's like, I don't have a whole lot of connections with the tall whites. I know that they exist. I know how they think. I know some of their fears. I know some things about them because I've done some reading by stuff, or reading Charles Hall's books, and he grew up right across Lake Michigan.
He's a neat guy. He's got a great story.
He does, and he's so meticulous in his talk and his understanding. He was just one of those farm kids that was kind of.
He's a processes guy. Everything's a process for him.
Yeah.
He did not emotionalize it at all. He just processed it like, oh, I've learned that I have to stand here, that I don't approach them, that I don't.
Yeah, exactly. And he's still trying to get people to understand that there's people here. And then there's some people that are working with Trump. I think those are Nordics and grays. Two kinds of grays, the tall ones and the short ones. Maybe not tall ones, except to keep them close. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tall ones, yeah. And to be able to ask them certain questions. And so, we have people here that are just not what I would call. They're not white men, they're not black men, they're not Chinese men, they're not red men, they're not brown. They are different. And they live in and on the planet. And so we are being encouraged to work with the situation and not give up. And everybody's tired of the chaos and the BS, and everybody's tired of being ripped off. That's another big thing.
We're up to here. It's a powder keg. I saw an Instagram reel, Penny, and I thought of you when I saw it. Oh. It was a guy speaking in the camera, and he goes, "What do we do? What do we do? I've gone to the marches. I've showed up at the city council. I've signed the petitions. Do we have to just drag them out of their homes and just, take care of them, And I'm like, that's exactly how I feel.
That is how a lot of people feel.
It's like we're so done. It's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know. And that has been, I think that's when I was tuning in, this was last week. It might have changed, but tuning into what's going on in Trump's inner circle, their big concern was how much powder kegness can we deal with without having it blow up in our face. They have handled so many things and changed and faced down so many people. And I think with the restart of what's her name, Susan Kokinda calls the American system, which is really the Alexander Hamilton system. With the restart of that, the city of London is really kind of, okay, we don't have many options. They're going to have to adjust. And Trump's not trying to take them out because you don't take out anybody. Okay. That serves as some. It's kind of like the pole shift. The pole shift serves as this message that says, "Look, develop your consciousness. You're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to think differently, be differently, maybe move. Be ready for different things." That's kind of the same thing that the City of London is going to perform. The same kind of role. And so all of that is now like, okay, we've pretty much satisfied ourselves that we have our own sovereignty back. And I did not realize that when Prince Charles and Camilla came over, in April? I think it was April. I did not realize that the reason they came over was to sign off on returning our sovereignty to us. And that's kind of been said in a few unusual places. And I was like, oh, wow.
No kidding.
Yeah, that
Well,
was their whole reason for coming. It wasn't just a state dinner or a state whatever.
that would be huge.
Yeah, that was huge. And I think they're doing something with Canada next. I'm not sure, but I think Canada's on their list. So, so that handoff, handing us our power, and everything being done legally, slow. It's so frustrating. It's because it's so slow. Now it's okay. How do we deal with these people in our own country that have, just like you said, had it up to here? They're done. They're fed up. And I think there's going to be some really interesting announcements in July having to do with the financial system. And I'm not sure how all that's going to play out, but I think there's going to be some legal loopholes for people who have gotten into debt for one thing or another, and for one reason or another. But that's the old system. And that I don't think they're just going to make a blanket statement that says, okay, you can ignore all your debt and don't pay that. That would create chaos. And they want to avoid chaos at all costs. And they want to avoid chaos for us. So they're moving slowly, working every angle. And the big concern is, well, what do we do with all these angry people? So,
well, Trump doesn't do himself any favors, or whoever's playing Trump, by settling people down. He can, he's lit a few fires.
More than a few.
Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah. And he can only deal with so much. And I understand that, because here, like on the farm, when we used to have a herd of cows, if the cows got out, somebody left the gate open, and the cows got out, and they go across the road, and they get into the neighbor's barn and start eating his fresh hay. It's embarrassing. It's mortifying. And it's like, okay, whatever you had scheduled, however many people, guests, consultations, phone calls, meetings you had scheduled, nothing gets done until all the cows are back in the pasture, our pasture. It's that kind of thing. You just can only deal with so much at one time. And when you're fielding so many things at once, Iran, Ukraine, the Fed, the money system, the fraud in California, the fraud in Minneapolis, the fraud across the whole U.S. around nursing homes, around daycare centers. The new fraud is 3,000 nursing certificates were sold to people who bought. I got a degree. I'm an RN. I'm a registered nurse. They didn't have anything. And then they managed to get, I don't know, the NCLEX. I don't know if you know what NCLEX is, but it's a book. You could study for the nursing boards in your state. And, a whole bunch of them passed those boards and then went to work. And it's like, oh my, 3,000, that was just in one school. There's other schools that were also selling registered nurses licenses and certifying that they had completed both the classroom and the clinical. The clinical is where you really learn. So, yeah. So they're busy dealing with all of that fraud. They're realizing that we can't get out of debt if we have this amount of fraud going on. And that should be obvious to anybody. Anybody. I don't care if you live in North Carolina or California or Idaho or Kansas. You can't have any kind of prosperity with that kind of fraud happening. And it's happening at every level.
Yeah. And I don't even think we realized as a country, and I'm speaking about the US in particular, but I'm not saying it's not happening in other countries. I don't think we realized it's been decades since our cities have really been taken care of or addressed, or infrastructure. I mean, it has stopped. I mean, I look around, I'm now living not very far from where I grew up.
Okay.
The infrastructure is the same when I was 7.
Oh, wow.
So I look around and I think they have literally, the infamous they,
Yeah, right.
literally robbed us blind.
I think that's true. And I think, let me just share something. You reminded me of something that I really wanted to warn people about. So the deep state, the corrupt ones, have lost, and they're still fighting. So what has been their latest tactic? It's to, okay, we can't control the president and the vice president, and maybe we can't control this, and we're not the head of the Federal Reserve anymore. Although Kevin Warsh, who's the other guy that was the head of the Fed, he decided, well, I'm gonna stay until the end of my term, even though Kevin Warsh has been installed as the new head of the Fed. It's like, okay, that's like, okay, we're going to have two, heads of the Federal Reserve. So anyway, what the deep state has been doing is saying, okay, the government is not under our control. We don't have control over all the senators and all the congressmen like we used to. Let's go after the mayors of all the towns, all the townships, all the little, villages. Let's see if we can get our people in there at that level, because that's the next level of where people are going to expect that they have some freedom. And I was so dismayed when I heard that. They are funding mayor races right down to the village of 300 people. And it's like, don't fall for that, people. Know who's it running for mayor, and what have their leanings? What have they been? Have they been for the people, or have they been part of the corruption? So
Yeah, or will they be part of the corruption? Because it's easy to say to somebody, there's some pretty little daughters you've got. Be ashamed if something happened to them.
Yeah, that's right. They're trying to get all the sheriffs, all the mayors. There was somebody else, the sheriffs. There were 3 layers. Maybe it was the attorney general, or some kind of lawyer for each town. So that, we're not done having to pay attention to who's in our community and what do they stand for, and how good have they been at being of service to the people and taking care of business in a good, honest way at the same time. So here we are. I think the next phase is all those little bitty elections, local elections. And if the school board fraud opens up, that I think that's gonna, the school bond. You've heard about the school bonds fraud thing? Yeah. If that comes out, or they cut off school districts from having access to the bond markets and being able to create bonds wherever they want for whatever amount of money they want, with any kind of interest that they're willing to pay, I was like, well, heck, maybe I should try to get in the bond business, but it's not my way. I don't like things that just aren't on the up and up. But if that school bond issue, if they get denied access to the bond market, that becomes well known that that's what's been happening. That's going to destroy a few communities. And it's going to make people look at who's running things in our town.
Yeah.
Everybody's running a scam.
Can you imagine how incredible our civilization would be if the money that we've actually invested in our systems went to I mean, it would be magical.
It would.
It would be magical.
Yeah. It's such the beauty that, going back to your comment about the infrastructure in your area hasn't changed since you were 7. And I was just talking with my son the other day, and we were talking about what has happened in Kalamazoo, what has happened in Detroit. I think Detroit is starting to pull out of it now because Detroit decided they are going to be the world's biggest urban farm. And they have turned the entire city into orchards and blueberry patches and gardens and, fruits and whatever. It is amazing. And I was invited by the Kellogg Foundation. This is probably, I'm going to say, 15 years ago, to be part of a group because I had started some community gardens in Kalamazoo and Battle Creek, to go and visit the city of Detroit. That's 15 years ago that they were deciding, we've got all this land, what are we doing with it? Everybody has moved out. And so everybody has gardens, orchards. They turned whole city blocks into food centers. It's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be world, planet wide. I mean,
I know. Oh my gosh.
I know.
People, when we went, the day that we went to Detroit, and I'm very familiar with Detroit because my dad worked in Roseville. We lived way north of Detroit, but he drove that whole distance every day. And I was in love with Detroit. That was the first place I went to as soon as I graduated from high school. It was an amazing, beautiful place. And then it went downhill badly. We had a couple of mayors who were crooks that went to jail. And then the next one came in and he was worse than the one that just went to jail. And so people have had to get really sharp and really paying attention and really fierce about who they're willing to support. And Detroit has started to turn around. I don't see that happening in New York. I don't see that happening in San Francisco. I haven't heard anything about that. But when we went to visit Detroit that day, the whole Kellogg Foundation group, there were people that were visiting from every country in Europe. They had gathered together and come to see how Detroit did it. And that whole thing was like I said, 2009 and 10, I think. And they just never stopped. They just kept on going. So there are answers. There are solutions.
There's a ton of solutions. We just keep killing everybody that comes up with good ones. I mean, it's like it's
yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. I want to make sure we stay on track. I have a personal question, and we don't need to spend much time on it. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think there are people watching that would like to do this too.
Okay.
So I thought that maybe you could just give me some pointers or share pointers with us for those of that. This sounds interesting too.
Okay. All right.
There's a lot of off-planet interaction now on Earth. I mean, a lot more than there has been.
That's true.
Yeah. I want an ET buddy.
Okay. I'll talk to my friends.
So here's the reason why. It's like I want a friendship with someone that lives somewhere else that's here on Earth or wants to come to Earth, because I want to learn about their life, and maybe they would like to learn about mine, and we could develop a friendship so that we can just exchange information and become more familiar with the different cultures.
Yeah.
And so I put it out there, and I thought, well, probably the best place to start would be, for them to talk to me telepathically or communicate with me telepathically, a little easier on my energy system. A little, I promised I won't freak out. I'm prepared.
Okay.
So, for those of us who want an ET buddy, what would you say, would be, is that enough? Is the intention enough?
No, you have to have action behind it. So, there's some steps that I would recommend. That these are the steps I do. Okay, when I need to connect. Now I have some other skills that I can use, but I don't use all those skills all the time. So, but sometimes I wanna communicate. Okay. And so you have to sit down, you have to get very quiet. Yeah, and you can do that. You turn off your phone, you turn off the radio, you turn off the TV. Maybe you have to do that in the middle of the night, so nobody's going to interfere. But you have to get really, really quiet. And then once you get really quiet, you go deeper and you go deeper. And you have to have some sort of imaginary action that you're doing. The imaginal realm is very important in that connecting, because it's usually going to start in that realm, which is where telepathy happens. And so, so then get very quiet, go very deep within yourself, and then you have to reach out with your consciousness. You can do just, it's helpful, let me say it this way. It's helpful if you're a beginner to imagine that you are talking on the phone, that you are making a phone call to someone who works in and with the light.
Yeah.
You don't want somebody else, okay? Because there's lots of people out there. And that you're looking for a relationship. And I always say something to the effect of, and this is what I learned from the elves. My name is Penny Kelly, and I live in Michigan, and I will project a picture of the southwest corner of Michigan with my farm kind of lit up. And it's in that spot because they look for those kinds of things.
Okay.
And then I am inviting you to come to be a friend. I would like to get to know someone, who is, they do know that they are thought of as extraterrestrials or ETs or aliens. They're comfortable with all those terms. They'll know what you mean. And then, and you say, I don't need to connect right now if this is a bad time for you, but I'm going to remain open. Thank you very much. Always say thank you. And always say, okay, I'm closing now, so that because there are times when I forget to say I'm closing now, but my mind has wandered. And as they end up saying to me, well, you disappeared. And so,
oops.
Like, I'm sorry. It's kind of, I'm distractible. I'm not perfect. It's so, but I have, I've used that. And then you stay very quiet in case there's some kind of transmission. If you have a question, that question is part of the invitation. You should ask the question. I would really like to know, what, whatever it is. And then when you're done saying thank you, goodbye, closing now, then you sit very quiet for a little bit. And sometimes you will get an answer that just blows your socks off. You'll have this, you'll be almost like you're imagining a voice, but there have been times when it's not imagining. There've been a few times when I've literally heard a voice, a booming voice that, it's like, it shocks you right out of your quietness. But the message is clear. So, and if nothing happens the first time, you do that every night, every single night. Persistence pays off. Okay. If you're brave enough, you can imagine that you're leaving your body. One of the techniques is to imagine that you're climbing the stairs or this ladder and you're going up into the sky. and you keep climbing and climbing and climbing. And there'll come a point in the climb where you get bored and you see something. You forget the ladder and you see something off to the side, a planet, a person, or whatever, and you can stop right there and communicate. Or you can stop and investigate, and you learn something. And that getting out of the body does take a little bit of practice for people who haven't done that. But once you can do that, you can have a full-blown experience somewhere else, and learn, understand, take a break, whatever, create something. There's an amazing removal of limits to creativity that occurs when you get out away from the body.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that. That was great. Very great.
Okay, you have to use your imaging ability.
I got that in space.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like an IMAX movie in here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yep. 360 degrees.
Yeah. I can furnish an entire house at 1.3 seconds, you know.
Yeah. Oh my. Okay.
So I thought that we would spend the last little bit just sharing our personal thoughts about the pole shift.
Okay.
Just because I know that, you know, last month that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
I know that people are, let's face it, you know, not very people on the planet have any inkling. I mean, you could stand there in a crowded street and shout it, nobody would know what you're talking about. So the people that know it and have researched it, which there's tons of scientific evidence about it, are feeling a little lonely or a little don't know what to do with the emotions.
Yeah.
So let's start with you. How are you doing with it? How did it hit you? You know, how are you working with that information?
Well, okay. So some days really well, put it like that. Other days not so well. And I've known pretty solidly ever since I wrote Consciousness and Energy, Volume 4, I have known that there's this pole shift micronova thing coming at us. I didn't say much about the pole shift, but I think that's actually going to be the first thing because it's, you know, it's in process now. We see it, we're watching it happen. But the reaction that I had when I first heard it was, I'm doomed. It's over. I might as well be dead. What's the point? And then, you know, after moping and mourning and etc., then I tried to bargain with the sun. And the response I got, you know, when I said, well, what can we do? And the answer was one word, prepare. And it was like, okay, I'm not really sure how to do that. So then I went through this whole thing like, okay, I need to up my game around prep. What am I doing? What am I ready for? And decided that I really wasn't ready for very much. I had built a refuge for 25 years. It took us to build this place. And then all of a sudden it just felt like it was not useful. It wasn't enough. It wasn't the right thing. And so then I went through a whole, you know, downer about that. But just this last week, when I talked about the specific, here's what's happening, here's where it's at, get ready. Afterwards, and I could feel everybody's shock and everybody's dismay. I could not shake that shock and dismay. It was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't want to ruin your day. I didn't want to ruin your week. And so it was like, oh, wow. But then a couple people wrote, I got a nice letter from Owen Waters, and he said, wow, that took some cojones to take on that subject. And I was like, I didn't feel very brave or very courageous. But I feel like if I don't really say something And actually, I was thinking, I do not like taxes and numbers and bookkeeping and all that stuff. I do it because I have to, but I don't like it. And information about it goes in one ear and out the other. And so I was thinking about all the times that Nellie has said, well, you need to do this or that or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. And then I completely forget. It doesn't mean anything.
That's the last thing you think about, yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that if I didn't do that, then this would happen. It's like, oh, crap. And so then I was thinking, that's, what if people are like I am with numbers and they're just not hearing what I'm saying? Prepare, get ready. We can survive this. It's kind of a nuisance, but we can survive this. And maybe it won't be as bad if we use our consciousness. So that, that's really been where my head is at for the last, couple of days, since last Thursday. And a couple of other people wrote and said things that I thought were really helpful. And so it's like, okay, all right. Yeah, it's a shock because we expect tomorrow's going to be just like today. And there have already been some delays. But we need to do a little more prep, a little more getting ready. So that's been my whole attitude for the last few days is I hope I haven't ruined everybody's lives. And then it's like, oh, stop being dramatic. And then it's like comes back again. I'm sorry. We need to deal with this. We need to. So, yeah. So that's it.
Okay. All right. So I have some thoughts.
Okay.
Which I was surprised at, to be honest with you.
Okay.
First of all, and this is so surprising to me, it was a little bit of a relief.
Because
this place is it's just.
Oh, because the place is a mess?
Because the earth is it's like when I think about all the people that barely have enough to eat and don't have electricity. And then there's wackos like Bezos, with billions of dollars while people are starving. Yep. It's just like this is such a project to get this place cleaned up.
I know.
And it's like, oh my gosh, well, that takes a lot of, I'm gonna have as much fun as possible over the next 3 years. That's what I'm gonna do.
There you go.
So it was kind of like that. And Penny, I don't know, maybe I'll feel differently next week. Okay. But to be very honest with you, I'm like, why prepare? Why do I want to live in a world that's been completely upended, where it's going to be a struggle bus just to get something to eat? There's no electricity, there's no transportation, there's no communication. That's going back to, that's a tough life.
I know.
And then as soon as we start digging out of that, and maybe we've got, some little rudimentary way of keeping things together, then the solar or whatever the space thing is.
Yeah, micronova.
The micronova, which is from what I hear, that's going to be it.
Yeah, that's both of those, pole shift and micronova, are considered to be extinction level events, but much more so with the micronova than the pole shift.
So I'm thinking, why would I prepare? Then I had this thought, I'm going to damn well make sure I'm sitting on the beach in Florida when it happens.
Okay.
Because then I'm off to my next journey. Yeah. It's like there's a part of me, it's like, why?
Why fight? Why struggle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because I love this planet. I love it.
I know.
I tell Mother Earth that she is the most amazing, interesting, varied. This place is amazing.
It is.
Maybe, And I'm grateful. I was so grateful that I've had the opportunity to be here and experience all the things.
Yes.
All the things. It's like it's just been so rich
Yeah.
and varied and deep and meaningful. But maybe there's nothing in me, Penny, that even wants to prepare.
Ah,
You know, I'm
that,
just okay. You know,
so that could be either that there's no need for you to prepare because you're in a good spot and you'll be fine. Or, you know, it's like, okay, I'm going to enjoy the last couple of years here and I'm not going to complain. And then I'll be done. And you know, I've said to people, you have to you have to have your mindset. You have to be really present when you're getting ready to walk out of this body and leave here, because you have some decisions to make and you need to be clear about who you are, what you want. And I was thinking about John Peterson. It was John died July 14th. I think it was July 14th, 24th, something like that. But it was June 14th when, at that point, I knew that, oh no, we're going to lose John. And I tried to get him to prepare, and he didn't. His attitude was, I'm not done here. I'm not dying. And it was like, oh. So then he died. Okay. So he's on the other side, and one of the decisions you have to make when you first leave the body is, do you want to hang around and communicate with the people that you left behind? And watch how they are and, you know, offer them some comfort and things like that. And he obviously said yes to that. But long about, I'm going to say December, so that was from July to December, he came and he disappeared in December. And then maybe in February, he showed up and he said, I've discovered some options. And so I came to say goodbye. And he said, you know, he had a few pieces of advice for the Arlington Institute, and it was gone. That was it. And I thought, okay, he has discovered that you don't have to stay here. You don't have to come back here. You know, if you go to one of the, you know, way stations, you typically are going to come back here because you're going to study the life you just had. You're going to prepare and choose the next life. But there are other options. And he did not say he was going to the way station. He discovered other options. And I thought, oh, wow. Okay. And I'm not sure 100%, but 99% sure that what he discovered was the option to work with other beings who were trying to help the planet, ETs, other reality systems, and went off to see what might be possible there. So we'll see. But that's an example of, you have to be present because you have choices. You have a half a dozen choices when you go to leave here. And you want those choices. You know, different people have different kinds of options that open to them. And I was doing some research just recently, you know, thinking, okay, I need to explore the way station in this place where Bob Monroe and I used to talk about all the time. He called it the park. I just called it the landscape. The place where the colors were alive and beautiful and flowers were alive, and you could look into the center of a flower and watch the living system working. It was amazing. So that whole place I discovered is connected to the place where I had built this little house on the new earth. It was like, oh, did I somehow know that I was leaving here? Am I leaving here? You know, that kind of thing. But at the same time, there's another reality system, just like Earth, that's way more beautiful, way more real. And it doesn't have all the crap that goes on here.
Okay, I want to go there.
So So, yeah, I know. And so and there's a lot of wonderful people. The people who end up going there are people who are pretty aware. And so it was like, oh, how did I happen to build my little cottage with the cattails in the pond and the water lilies floating on the water and the Adirondack chair sitting right beside the pond? How did I happen to choose that location? And I finally realized that was one of the places that these three beings of light took me to way back when. And, when I was sitting on the roof, and they said, come with us. And so I went, and that's where we went. So I went back there and built this house, and then discovered that they had already prepared a place for me, and it's still sitting empty. It's like, no, I want the cottage instead. So, but that's a whole nother level of living, a whole separate thing from, having to be here, feed the dog, pay the electric bill, talk to my kids, work, do my work, etc., which I love. So there are other worlds. There are lots of other worlds. And if this one is not workable, there are others that are just like this, that are absolutely stunning in their beauty, their cleanliness, and the love. I guess it's love. It's plain and simple.
I've got one of those places that I go to, and it's by a small little river. And there's a little house there, and that's where I meet my daughter.
Okay. Yes.
And we just go hang out, and she dances, and
yes.
It's
same thing.
Yeah. I have an open kitchen, kind of like they do in Mexico. It's open.
Yeah. I love that. I love it.
Okay. So here's to wrap up the pole shift thing. And I've been thinking about it a lot and trying to pull pieces of information that I've seen or heard, because like you, I watch a lot of stuff, read, I try to keep abreast of what's going on. This is what I don't understand, or it doesn't make sense to me. It certainly makes sense to me that, all the billionaires have their little bunkers. They know what's coming.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So they've got their little bunkers, and that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense to me is over the course of, the last 20 years, there are so many more channelers on the planet, so many more people connecting.
Yeah.
There's plans for ETs, other civilizations to show up on the planet next year. Yeah. I've heard that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
There's just, I look around and I think, well, if things are ending, or if it's going to get taken down to the bare bones again, why would there be all this effort? Why would there be all these people trying to raise our consciousness? Why would there be all of this, fourth dimensional ascension talk? It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, why does everybody just vacation for 3 years and then, we start over somewhere else?
Okay. Because the goal is to be able, in a nutshell, the goal is to be able to raise your consciousness. So if you survive, you can build a completely different kind of civilization at a higher level. And if you don't survive, you can go to one of the higher worlds. You don't want to go to some of the lower worlds. Oh my.
No, I'm done with this low vibrational stuff.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. And so you have options. And what is the goal? And this is actually something I've been working on in Volume 5, The Nature of Reality, Consciousness and Energy, Volume 5. What are we doing here? What is the goal? And the goal is to collect as much experience as you can possibly collect in as many bodies as you need to be able to have those experiences And I've had the question, okay, I know that I have another alternate self elsewhere.
In China, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe I could go there, et cetera. I'll just end up over there if something happens to this one over here. But I think it's going to be the opposite, actually. So, so the goal is to be able to accumulate enough experience, enough wisdom, and to be able to activate love, the love that you're made of. You have to activate that love because you're made of it. And people, they distort it, or they just don't believe it, or they're bitter or whatever. You have to activate that love, and then all sorts of possibilities open that you cannot see until that has been activated and you have raised your frequency enough. So it looks like, well, what's the point? Until you get there. And then it's like, oh my, all sorts of options. You see so much more. I happened to see a picture the other day of the big giant pine cone in the Vatican, somewhere in the Vatican yard. So, and there's two peacocks on either side of this gigantic pine cone. And I haven't really paid much attention to the pineal gland. People get all excited. Oh, my pineal is calcified or done this or done that. And I'm like, no, just be healthy. Do your detox, eat well, exercise, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself well. That pine cone is that pineal gland. And what happens when that opens? You're in another level. You're in another world level, another dimensional level. And all of your eyes open up. That's what those two peacocks are doing on either side of that pine cone. Because when that peacock opens its tail, it looks like there's a whole bunch of eyes looking back.
That's a good representational sculpture.
It is. People used to know exactly how we were built and how we were meant to unfold. And, we've lost a lot of that. But once once you unfold all sorts of new things, you literally see options. You dream differently. You think differently.
You have a new operating system. You have a new operating system.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like going from Linux or Windows to chat or AI or something. Claude. Yeah.
Okay, so all of you listening, think about this if you're planning on staying. I told this to Penny earlier. All those elites that are in the bunkers, they're going to come out of those bunkers and mess your world.
They might and they might not. I think if at least a few of them would be sufficiently, maybe not humbled, but they're hoping to preserve some of our technology and bring that out, and they don't have any way to bring that forward right now because they're they're hampered in all the same ways that we are. Maybe not all, but quite a few. They can't bring us to a higher level because for a lot of reasons. We all know all the reasons. The deep state, the fraud, etc. The consciousness of people who are cynical, who don't believe, who don't want to cooperate, who don't want to work, who don't care. We are their biggest obstacle. So
I don't know if I agree with that. I would say that the people who want to maintain a stranglehold on us and siphon off all our assets are the biggest obstacle.
I could see where you would think that. Yeah. And they might try to do something like that. I don't think it's going to work. I think some of them are going to end up down in the center of the earth and they're going to be fried to a crisp, or they're going to sink and be under the ocean. And, we'll see. They're never going to be able to open their door unless they're going to let in, 6 quadrillion gallons of water.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was thinking about it. there's so much technology that's leaking out, even though they're trying to, stuff it. For instance, the water machines, the machines that pull water out of the air. And there's lots of free energy devices popping up here and there on social media, even super simple ones with magnets, Penny, in Africa that kids are putting together to irrigate the fields. I mean, it's like super, super simple.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, if you really, really wanted to get things together so that when everything goes down, you could.
You could.
The technology is there, and someone could tool up and make a ton of those machines, and it could happen.
Yeah. I think we have such an amazing future ahead of us if we can just keep one step ahead of what happens naturally on a planet.
Yeah.
That's really the big, that's really where it's at.
Well, and I think that we could have made it this time if a lot of the technology wasn't suppressed.
I agree.
Yeah.
That is why so many ETs and so many good people are in this fight to get out of the mess that we walked right into.
Yeah.
We're a lot smarter than we were 50 years ago.
Or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yes. Well, for some of us, it's been a long time, but
it's been a lot longer. Yeah.
And look at what media has done. It's like we live in a sea of information. Some of it is visual, like YouTube, and some of it's auditory, but every frequency carries information. We are information. And I think we're just now on the cusp of coming to recognize that, woohoo, we have access to all that information. What are we going to do with it? So,
things could turn around pretty quick.
They could.
Yeah.
I think they will. I think we're in the process of seeing it turn, and it just needs to keep on turning so that we come to this place in our mind where no country is under another country. Everybody's working together. It's a win-win for everybody.
I just want everyone to be, well, this sounds so Pollyannish, but I just want everybody to be happy and have a fun life.
Yeah.
I want the kids to, have food. And it's like,
Those kids will grow up in the same way that we did. They won't grow up to be the same as us. But when I look back to the hippies in the 60s, when I was growing up, and how they all grew up and had to deal with reality, all those young people right now who are so estranged or so critical or so, they're just not cooperating. There's some young ones that are amazing speaking up, and they are coming up and being influential. And I'm like, you just keep right on coming, sweetheart, because that is what your peers need to hear. Somebody in their generation saying, well, look, if we think of it this way, or if we do that, or if we don't do this, or if we stop complaining about that, it works. So, yeah.
Well, I've taken a bunch of your time, Penny. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
I learned so much, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I hope it was just as good for all you guys watching too.
Yeah. Take heart, you guys. Chin up. Keep your chin up. We're moving into we're already in some really interesting times. And I think it's just going to be so much more rewarding as we move forward. Everything will change. Let it change. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be back next month.
Okay.
Check out My Coco Life. If you haven't yet, go check it out. I think you might like it.
Yeah. Come to My Coco. We're finally going to put up a landing page, so we have something besides a blank sheet. When people come, it's like, oh, sorry, it's not fancy yet. We never really launched, and all of a sudden, there's thousands of people signed up. So
and it's a fun community.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Okay. Yep. Take care. Thank you for listening. Have a good week. Have a good month. Happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to click the button.
Okay.